So you're all here for the effective meetings workshop. Okay, secretary training. Everyone in the right place? Excellent. I've already mentioned, but please make sure you register your attendance. You're going to hear that at every session. I'm sure they've already drilled that in the morning session this morning. Good morning everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Lisa Mott-Smith. I'm the Sports Programmes Manager within the University of Manchester. So essentially I oversee all of the sports programmes, so everything from our entry-level activities through Sportisipate, trying to get more people involved in sport and physical activity, right the way up to our elite performers and scholars and those who are on dual careers, some that have just been at the Olympics and Paralympics doing pretty well, and everything in between. So if you're from a sports club, you will probably hear from me quite a lot, or the teams that I sort of oversee. Just to give you a bit of a feeling then of who's in the room, do we have people from sports clubs? Put your hand up, yeah? Majority of people? Excellent. Anyone from societies? Good people. Okay, cool, so good mix. So obviously today there's going to be a bit more of a sport feel to the presentation, but a lot of the things are very standard. We work really closely obviously with the activities team to have a similar approach to supporting our student groups and what they do. So if there's anything you're not sure about, particularly from a societies or activities perspective, and you want to have a chat about afterwards, let me know. If there's anything that I've missed, let me know, and if I don't know, I can signpost you to the right people that are here today from the SU, particularly from an activities perspective. Okay, so what I'd like to do, because we've got a bit of a mixture, I'm sorry, it is the really cringe bit that everyone hates doing, but it fills up a little bit of time of this hour that I've got to fill with you, is just with the person next to you, in front of you, behind you, just let them know which club or which group you're from, what your role is, and what experience you've got. If you just have 5 minutes doing that, that'd be great. So just to get a bit of a feeling for the room then, is everyone in here in the role of secretary or general sec, something like that, or have we got a couple of different roles? Bit of a different dual role maybe? Yeah? Different role or something?
Vice chair.
Vice chair, okay, cool. Brilliant. So obviously everything that we cover will help for probably all the roles, because a lot of this, in terms of effective meetings or stuff that the secretary does, tends to go across a lot of what the committee does. In terms of what we're going to look at then over the next half an hour or so, we're going to look at what is the role of a secretary then, our expectations of you within that role, what you need to do, how to run effective meetings, a bit around data protection, the importance of AGMs and why you need to do those, tips on being a great secretary then, how you work with your wider committee and the importance of that, support from Sport or from the SU Society, some bits on funding, and then handover documents. If there's anything that we're covering that you have got questions about, or anything that we don't cover that you want to add in, or you want to ask questions about, please do. I don't want this just with me sort up here just talking at you for half an hour, so if you've got things to say, things you want to ask, challenge, whatever that might be, please do. Okay. So, in terms of why you agreed to take on responsibility for secretary, main points on there, probably because you want to make a worthwhile contribution to the group that you're part of. You want to have more influence about the way that it's run. You feel that you develop skills and experiences that may help you kind of within future roles within the committee, depending on what you're in or where you're heading in the future. You want to become more closely involved with how the organisation's run, and it's probably because you've got friends or that's now your social group. I'm sure there are some people that are in here within the role because they may have been encouraged to go for it, or because it wasn't filled in the right way. But hopefully you get something out of it, something worthwhile, and hopefully you'll develop skills from doing things like today, from working with your groups, from working with us as Sport or the SU, that you'll go on and you can use in whichever walk of life where you go next. So what else do you think is in a role of a secretary then? When you took on the role, what are the sort of things that you were expecting to have to do? Anyone want to shout out some stuff? Go ahead.
I'll write emails.
Yeah.
Taking minutes in meetings.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Organising the AGM.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
Doing whatever the chair kind of tells you to do.
Kind of, yeah. Within reason. Yeah. All of the above, everything you've said and on there. So you're usually, as a secretary, the first point of contact for all inquiries, whether that's from your members, from potential members, from us within Sport or within the SU, from anyone who might get in touch. Your role is about attending meetings, excuse me, representing your club, so whether that is you organising the meetings and being there for committee meetings, whether that's meetings with the university, whatever that might be, you're usually the person attending and representing the club, either to speak on behalf or to do things like take minutes and that sort of stuff. Keeping files of past minutes and reports, so you mentioned there around emails, taking minutes, AGM, spreadsheets, that sort of thing. The secretary's role is to keep all of that together, to make sure that that's effectively communicated with all of the groups, your groups. Helping to prepare agendas for meetings with the chairperson, so said doing whatever the chairperson tells you to do, like I said, safely and within reason. But yeah, supporting them with setting the meetings, setting an agenda, making sure that that's circulated, that sort of thing as well. Obviously communicate with your committee and your wider members. Supporting the affiliation process, so you all will have been through the re-affiliation process this year, so making sure that that's completed, and we've got all key information on, in terms of you as a club, who your committee members are, all of that sort of thing. Writing and receiving communications, so that might be through emails, a lot of it now comes through social media, you might be putting posts out or writing things on your son's accounts and on websites and that sort of thing. Keeping members informed, obviously with however you choose to do that now. Supporting and booking facilities and officials, it might not just be your role, you might have kind of official sex or fixture sex that might do this sort of thing, but you'll probably be part of that and communication for those. Keeping a record of memberships, and we'll talk about sums in a little bit, but it's easier now that you've got the sum system and there to do that, but keeping a record of memberships so that you know how many members you've got, you know who's in your group and who's accessing what. Keeping record of important things like phone numbers, or how to contact your wider committee or wider members. Working closely with the other committees, members, in particular the chair, but absolutely everyone, because your role is quite key as a secretary in terms of making sure everyone's got the key information they need, they know where things are stored, they can access that, and you become a bit of the kind of gatekeeper for all of that. Organising the club's AGM, which is one of the most important meetings that we'll talk about today. Potentially again supporting about applying for funding. It might be your role, secretary, to kind of maybe write those applications, or it might be just keeping a track of when they've gone in, if they're successful or not. Same with kind of sponsorship, things like that. Collecting and analysing information of members. So there's a lot of things that we would like you to do from the sport department to make sure we're really demonstrating that students have got a good experience throughout the time here. There's things that clubs do and groups do really well to make sure that their members are getting good opportunity and that they're accessing the right offer. So often your role as secretary will be supporting that, putting up with the processes to do that. And then supervising kit and equipment. Again, that might not be down to you, particularly like some groups will have kit sets, but it's about working with them to make sure you've got all that information in one place and that it's accessed, it's up to date. Anything on there that people thought, no, that's not my role, or anything that you think is missing from there? Or all pretty standard sort of stuff?
Are these slides going to be shared with us?
Yeah, everything's from today's recorded, apart from the disclosures sessions. Yeah. Oh, wrong computer, that's good. So in terms of our expectations of you as secretary, particularly from a sport perspective, is that you commit to your role, you're a committee member, and that you commit to your role throughout the duration of the period that you've been elected for. We do know that sometimes things come up, you might get go on placement that makes that a little bit more difficult, or circumstances change. If that happens, come and speak to us and involve your chair. But we would like people to stick out the roles that they've taken on and be engaged throughout that whole time that they're in. Uphold our behaviours and values outlined in our codes of conduct, and as secretary you will be supporting the chair and wider committee members in making sure they're shared across your committees, but also your wider membership. So we have a code of conduct and support that you need to sign up and agree to at the start of the year. You need to attend those meetings. It's not just about setting up those meetings and sharing agendas. You need to be there, be present and taking those minutes and make sure that other people are attending them as well, but be engaged with them. Provide an appropriate and detailed handover. We'll talk handover at the end of the session, but it's so important and so key. Has anyone in the room today had no information about the role that they've taken on and nothing passed on to them by other members or previous committee members? Yeah, a few people. So a handover is so important just to keep things in one place, but we will talk about that, and it's something you will hear throughout today because it's crucial in making sure that things can happen. Be engaged, access to SharePoints. I think Meg talked about this in the welcome meeting, but there's a SharePoint for sports groups where all the information that you will need to be able to operate the groups is held there. As well as come and speak with us as a team. We're here to support you. That's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you get the most out of your role and that your club is running the most effective way and your members have a great time. And access documents. So that's also about storing them in the right way and sharing them appropriately. So that's our kind of expectations of you as a secretary. So hopefully nothing that you wouldn't be expected to do or don't feel that you can do. You stop pressing the wrong thing. So in terms of effective meetings then, because obviously you mentioned before a big part of your role is setting a schedule for final meetings, whether that's committee meetings with your wider membership, and then the big meeting at the end, which is at the end of the year, which is the AGM. Some things that you should do before it. Set a clear meeting time, date and place, and do that in advance. Don't set a meeting for 5 o'clock today and expect that people are going to be there and be able to get there. Set meetings in advance. Communicate with all of your members where the meeting is, date, time, place. Think about where you host it. Make sure it's accessible. Make sure you've got the right sort of room that you need, and the right sort of space to get everyone in who might be attending. And it's not in kind of busy, crowded places where, one, you can't maybe talk about some things you need to talk about, or two, you can't hear what's being spoke about. If it's online, which a lot of our committees do choose to do meetings online, make sure the links work, make sure you're sharing the right link, and then record them if possible. But if you're recording, make sure you're getting people's consent to record those meetings beforehand. And check beforehand if anyone needs additional support. So if people need things sending out beforehand, if they need it sent out in a different version, if people need access requirements, all of that sort of thing. And always circulate the purpose and any agendas and key documents before the meeting. So there may be times throughout the year that as a committee you decide that maybe something isn't going right, or you've got something that you want to do and you want to change things, you decide to bring the committee in. It's always good to share why you're pulling that meeting together, what's the purpose of it and what you're trying to get out of it, so nobody feels that they kind of having information given them to the last minute or haven't had a chance to prepare for it. It's just not going to be efficient if you do it that way, and you just end up having to probably another meeting or a couple of meetings. So always share the purpose, any agendas, key documents, make sure they're circulated and people have got time to look at them, digest them and give their thoughts on them. I'll keep doing that all day. Ensure during the meeting then, it's about ensuring that all documents are accessible, so you've got them printed, they're online, if there needs to be different fonts, maybe if there's maybe different languages that might be produced in, supporting with that and making sure they're there. Your role as Secretary is then to take notes, to take accurate notes, because then if something was to come back and people wanted to know what the committee have been talking about, or if you then need to take some actions on, it's important that you're capturing all of that. And always setting up whole behaviours during a meeting, and these are things that won't be too much of a surprise for you. It's about being respectful of everyone that's in the room, giving chance for people to have the information beforehand, and then for people to talk and give their views, making sure that people aren't shouting and talking over each other. You kind of help to set that standard of how you want that meeting to run efficiently. So it's upholding those behaviours, correct behaviours during meetings. Afterwards, it's then about making sure that your minutes have been checked, so it's always good to kind of sit down maybe with whoever was leading the meeting, so if it is the chair or the vice chair or fixture secretary, whoever that might be, sit down with them and make sure that the minutes you've captured truly reflect what's happened, and any actions truly reflect what was agreed in that meeting. Then you need to circulate them to those who attended, so whether that is through email or through your son's account, through the automated emails, you can send them there, however you choose to do that. Ensure your actions are clear, and I think with actions, and when you capture them, it isn't about just what needs to be done, it's about setting a deadline for when those need to be done and when things are going to be checked upon, because often they won't happen. Save any documents in a central file, and we'll talk about kind of storage of information later on, but it's important that you've got things saved in an accessible kind of way that you're going to be able to find it, and that others may be able to find it, but it's stored safely. And then make arrangements for the next meetings if you've not already done that, and be circulating that on any kind of minutes or things that you take. Again, anything on there that you are surprised by, or all of it pretty straightforward, what you would expect. Or anything missing? No? Brill. Just mentioned there around the saving of information. Like I say, your role is to capture everything that's talked about or discussed in those meetings, or it might be holding records of your members and how you communicate with them, and it might have personal information on. Good practice is that you always save information in a password protected space, or if we're using kind of shared drive or OneNote, making sure that only people who need access to that have got access to it. If you've got passwords on documents, don't just be sharing those passwords, don't put that in an email that you send the attachment with, don't send a text with or WhatsApp with that on, and never share any personal details regarding your members. We know that particularly through social media now, you'll get a lot of companies and people saying, oh, we want to work with you, can you send us all your members lists? Don't share people's personal information. That's not yours to share, it's theirs. And again, if you're ever worried about sharing information or how you store information, come and have a chat with us, or you can access the very lengthy and wonderful University Data Protection information But if you're worried about anything or not sure where or how you should be saving things, come and have a chat with us and we can make sure that you're doing that all in the right way in compliance with guidance. So again, seems pretty straightforward and common sense, but it's really easy to do in terms of maybe even leaving form documents around with people's names, even like their student emails, things like that on. So you've just got to be really, really careful in terms of where you hold that information, how you hold it, how safely you store it, and who has access to it as well. AGMs, so your annual general meetings, in line with your conditions of club registration, so something that you all sign up to when you take on a committee role or when you sign up to be part of a club, you have to run an AGM at the end of the year. So it's your responsibility as secretary, once to get that date in, and actually getting that date in now, maybe getting a cycle 4 meetings throughout the year now is kind of good practice. Arranging the venue and date of time, and again making sure that particularly for the AGMs you often get more of your members there, so making sure you've got the right space, the right room, making sure it's accessible, that sort of thing. For the AGM, it's often where you will do your elections for your new committee members, so making sure that anything has been done beforehand in terms of sending around the election information, you collate in those reports, or maybe people's manifestos, however you want to do those elections, you would be supported with collating of them beforehand and working with the chair on what that process will be. Obviously notifying people of where it is, anything needs to be done in advance. There's usually a set period of time that you need to let people know from an AGM, so like I said before, it's good practice just to give advance on when meetings are anyway. You're more likely to get people there if they've got it in advance, but for your AGM you have to set that a couple of weeks in advance. I think it is through the Constitution. Inviting and receiving nominations for election officers, like I said before, so it might be setting that schedule for this is when we're going to do elections, this is how we're going to do it, this is where people are going to stand up and talk, or this is how we're going to do the voting. And then you arrange all the annual reports and statements of accounts. So at an AGM you should have the chair doing their report about giving an overview of how the year's gone. You would also have then the treasurer doing a financial report, so that's saying basically where you've ended up, anything that cash flow in and out throughout the year. And then you might have, depending on the committee roles, kind of like a welfare, a wellbeing role or fixture role, kind of doing their reports. Basically just an opportunity for people to give an overview of the year, how it's gone, where you started, where you ended up, anything for people to be aware of moving into the next year. And it might be where you arrange any sort of guest speakers. If it's usual practice, some of our clubs bring in maybe alumni members to talk about how they maybe want to support the group. It may be some sponsors that you've been working with, that you have an agreement with, that they're going to come in and talk to your full membership, and your AGM is an opportunity, like I said before, where you'll have more people in the room. So yeah, it's about arranging them and just making sure they're supported, and again they're really clear on what they want to do. So of all the meetings that you do, this is the most important one at the end of the year. So obviously it feels like it's ages away now, but actually getting the date in that for that. And having your wider membership involved in this one is really important, because it does give an overview of the club. Hopefully some of those coming through this year will be taking on committee roles and taking on the secretary role moving forward. So doing it in the right way is really positive. Any questions on anything so far? I know it all seems pretty straightforward and we're telling you things that you probably already know, but opportunity just to ask anything. No? Cool. In terms of taking minutes or setting agendas, I know they're very small, but just an example, again, this isn't anything you probably won't already be aware of. An agenda on the side there, really clear. Present bit is about who's going to be at the meeting. You might have any apologies for anyone who can't attend. Then your action, every point that you're going to talk about during the meeting, and the date of next meeting if can be shared on that agenda, and then how you take minutes, just as an example of how that works, and how you might want to capture information, but do it however best works for you. Like I say, as long as the information that you're collating truly reflects what's happened in that meeting or those sessions, that's the most important bit. Tips on being a good secretary then, before I jump into that, anything, what do you think makes a good secretary? What do you think you need to do?
Being organised and keeping all your documents in one place.
Yeah, organised, documents in one place, safely secured. Anything else?
Communication, so you're going to be able to work well with with the members.
Absolutely, yeah. Communicating well, effective communication, working with the other committee members. So yeah, all of that, organised, keeping record of all meetings, best practice to have them all electronically, and then share as appropriate. What a lot of our clubs are starting to do now is have OneNotes. Does anyone use OneNotes for a club? Or the OneNote process? So they just have, then they can have all of the meetings on there. You can share that as a whole notebook. Everything's obviously making sure that you're not sharing personal information. It's done the right way, but a good way that some of our groups are starting to do that. Sharing information, again, making sure it's passed and publicised widely. And in terms of being a good secretary, and this is for any committee role really, it's making sure you don't take on everything. So someone said before around actually the role can be perceived, particularly maybe by other committee members, particularly maybe chair or presidents of groups, that the secretary is there to do everything. You're absolutely not. You're going to be busy as it is with a couple of people smiling at that, so I can see that they maybe already have to do things that they didn't expect to do, but you're busy, you've got your academics, you're part of groups already, friendship groups, everything else, life is busy, so don't try and take on too much. And if you do feel like there's been too much passed to you, again, have that conversation with committee members. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, come and speak to us and we can support that conversation, because the reason you have a committee, the reason you have a number of roles on those committees is that the workload should be shared and not everything should be passed to you because they feel it's the work of the secretary. So don't take on too much and come and see us if you feel like that is getting too much. And just to follow on from that, in terms of working with the committee, communication is key, and I really can't stress this enough. We often get clubs coming into us and we'll meet with one member of the committee and then we end up seeing another member of the committee who has no idea that the previous conversations happened, and there's lots of different things happening within groups. That makes it really difficult and messy for everyone, and probably doesn't give you a great experience as a committee member and your members great experiences because they're not really sure what's happening. So work together with your committee, make sure you're communicating however you want to do that. Make sure you share all communications and that people really understand their roles in the committee. Like I say, it's about sharing the workload, about people being really clear on what they're doing and have clear roles and responsibilities. And I say, if anyone isn't sure of that, because often we do get it where people have kind of come into roles that maybe they weren't expected to and they take on things because nobody else went for that role or things like that, then come and speak to us about maybe to really understand those roles and responsibilities if that is an issue. But working together is absolutely key, and having a strong committee, and we will always find that the groups that work really well, that have a successful year, is where the ones that have had a committee that work really well together. They have a really clear plan at the start of the year, what they're trying to do, and what they want to achieve, and how they're going to get there, and who's doing what. In terms of how we support you, I've said before, we're here as a sport department, the SU here as a team to support students and student groups. We're about making sure that students have the best experience throughout their time at Manchester. So do come and speak to us about anything that you need support with. So that we have an office in the student union, activities team on one side, we're a sport department's down on the other side. Sport is also down at the Armitage Sports Centre. There's always people around there, so please do come and speak to us. In terms of support, you've obviously met Meg this morning, who's our sports practice officer. She is the student voice. She's that representative for you there as students and is there to support, but she will be sending out regular communications. Some of you may already been receiving them, I think. But she's there to support you. There'll be email updates. She'll also run the sport forums. We've obviously got the SharePoint site, which will have all key information on there. And she's always in the office or down the Armitage or roundabout, so please do speak to her. But come and speak to any of us within the sports team if you need anything. And the same for the SU activities team. They've got a big team of people there that can support whatever that is that you're trying to do, or any issues that you may have. So please come and speak to us, because we want to support you and want to help. In terms of the SharePoint site, and by the end of the day you'll probably all get sick of hearing about this, but it's there, it's got all key information on. You should all have access to it, I think, now. Anything you need for the year will be on there. If you think anything's missing that you would like on there that isn't, again, come and speak to us and we can get that added, because this is about having a central space to make your lives as committee members easier for running your clubs and groups. Any questions on anything so far? All pretty straightforward? Yeah.
If we got someone on the committee who isn't a student, Can they still access SharePoint?
Are they, as in they're completely external to university, or would they have a Manchester email?
So they wouldn't have Manchester email.
I'd have to check. I think they would probably need a Manchester email.
Okay.
So it would probably have to come through someone from the
Right.
committee, yeah. I'll double check though, but I'm pretty sure they need a Manchester email.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Cool. I mentioned funding earlier on, and funding might be one of the things that you lead as in terms of doing the applications or looking at those coming in. In terms of funding that's available for you as groups, there's a couple of opportunities. Within sport, we have the Development Fund. So this is a pot of funding there that groups can apply to throughout the year, and you can apply to as many times as you want for groups. But it's there to support any new and additional activity that you want to run. So it isn't just to cover things like transport or training costs or kit costs, but if you wanted to run a 6-week beginners program and do something completely new to try and get new members into your group, or if you wanted to do a one-off event to try and raise the profile of your group and bring new members in, or anything like that, the Development Fund is there for you to apply to. There needs to be some contribution towards some match funding from the club towards that fund, but there isn't a set limit on that and what you can apply for. Like I say, you can apply multiple times throughout the year, so that is there as a resource, and an underused resource if I'm being honest. So if you've got some ideas around what you want to do and how you want to engage new members, please do access the Development Fund. We then have a Major Club Equipment Fund that comes out once a year. This is for big pieces of kind of more capital-based equipment, so where we've got like rowing clubs and canoe clubs that need new boats, or groups that need big pieces of equipment that cost significant amounts. There is a Major Club Equipment Fund. We do have access to equipment, and for those groups that are part of Team Manchester, your core essential equipment is funded. And you should have all had communication about that. If not, let me know. And then there's also access to recreational grants, so where individuals may need some support to access recreation, so whether that's paying for membership fees, whether that's buying kit, whether it's some gym membership, whatever that might be, there is an access to recreation grant that can be applied for through the Student Union. That's going to go live, I think, in the next week or two. Like I said, that is an individual application, so it's something that you can't do on a club behalf of your members, but something you can signpost your members to if anyone's asking, or it's actually just good practice to share that, because people might not want to share that they can't afford a membership, or some kit or whatever it might be. So just sharing that with your members and letting people know that that's there is good practice. And then a fund that the Student Union hold is called Fund It. It's pretty similar to the Development Fund, but there doesn't have to be match funding for this, and it's for any activities or additional activities that your group wants to do throughout the year. So and again, the difference with Fund It is that there's set kind of windows throughout the year when they open that funding, and then once that pot of funding is gone, they sort of close it. But a number of opportunities there for you to bring some additional income into your group to run some activities. Okay. Last bit for us to cover today, and I mentioned at the start, is your handover documents. What I would say, and I say this to every group, is start developing your handover document now. So anything you're doing, and you can do your handover document in whatever format that you want to do it, but capturing the key bits of information of what you've had to do in your role and things that have come up, that anything you can pass on to people who will be stepping into future committee roles is key. Because those who are coming to the role or coming to this year not having a handover document will know how hard it is to understand systems and processes and how they do things. So whether you want to have a handover document for individual committee roles, or you want to do that as one big handover document for your club, however, decide as a committee however you want to do that. But in terms of having clarity on what the role is, what their expectations, your expectations are, any key policies or processes or links to things like SharePoint or agreements that you've got with facilities or your membership information or whatever that might be, meetings that you've had, schedules, that sort of thing. Keeping all that in one place is so helpful for others coming in, so that your club can continue to run and they can just be a really consistent approach to it. So honestly, I cannot stress enough how important the handover document is. Again, it really helps us as a department, because when we'll often get groups coming to us at the start of the year who've had no information, and therefore they've not done anything over summer, and it's really difficult to get activity up and running again because we've not had the right things passed on to them. So please consider that. Please start thinking about it now. And you don't have to have the format of how you want to do the handover document, but you capturing the relevant information is absolutely key. So we cannot stress that enough. Okay. Any questions?